Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on next year's school tuition. This will be for the 2021-2022 school year. So thank you for joining us as we look forward to a new school year planning. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on next year's school tuition. This will be for the 2021-2022 school year. So thank you for joining us as we look forward to a new school year planning. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. I apologize for that. We are also live streaming on YouTube. I've just uploaded the link to this presentation on the chat box. So if you know of anyone who's not able to join us this evening, we can share that link with them. This session is also being recorded, and we will post that on our website as well later on. We'll go ahead and we'll get started with this evening's presentation. And of course, as with all things, we will start with prayer. And so we will begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. As you all know, yesterday we celebrated the Feast of St. Patrick, a patron saint very special to the St. Pius community. And then tomorrow as well, we're also celebrating another great saint and another very important feast, the Feast of St. Joseph. So our prayer this evening is a prayer by St. Patrick, but we will ask St. Patrick and St. Joseph to join us in that prayer. May the strength of God pilot us. May the power of God preserve us. May the wisdom of God instruct us. May the hand of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May the shield of God defend us. May the host of God guard us against the snares of the evil ones and against temptations of the world. May Christ be with us. May Christ be before us. May Christ be in us. Christ be over all. May thy salvation, Lord, always be ours, this day, O Lord, and evermore. Amen. God our Father, you sent St. Patrick to preach your glory to the people of Ireland. By the help of his prayers, may all Christians proclaim your love to all people. Grant this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. St. Patrick, pray for us. St. Pius X, pray for us. As with all things as well, just as important as our prayer, we like to review our mission statement. And so we're currently going through, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, a self-evaluation and preparation for reaccreditation next year. And one of the areas that we're really self-evaluating and looking to clarify and just make a little more crisp and solid to who we are as a community is our statement. So our current mission statement is as a community of active Christians, we nurture faith, awaken talents, and develop character and academic strengths in all students. Our agenda for this evening, I'd like to walk us through a little bit of the trends as well as the history of our tuition at St. Pius. I'd like to introduce you and explain a little bit about our Parish Finance Council. We have a member of our Finance Council joining us this evening, so welcome to Don Gamblin, who will take a few moments to speak later in this presentation. And then looking ahead, what are our current needs, but also what is the vision for moving forward and how tuition, fundraising, financing plays an important role in really solidifying that vision and the great things that are to come. So we're already doing great things, but there are even greater things to come. And so with your support as a community, in partnership with the parish, we're going to move forward and we're going to be able to accomplish those things. And then lastly, I'd like to talk just a bit about registration, what that process looks like, and go over a few of important dates as well as information within the registration forms and the tuition agreement. that was sent out last week. So that's what we'll look at this evening in this presentation. So I know with the tuition letter that went out on Friday, I'm sure for many of you, it was quite a big whoa moment, a sort of surprise, as most often we don't make such a major leap from one year's tuition to another. And so I try to explain the necessity and why the Finance Council approved that tuition hike for next school year. And this evening, I want to dig a little deeper into the tuition trends, both of the history of St. Pius and that of our San Mateo cluster schools. So we're going to cover a lot of information this evening about that. But looking back to last week when this was announced, I know for a lot of you it was a surprise. It was a very difficult decision to make, but it was a necessary decision to make. And so we're going to take a look at some numbers and the history of our tuition trends. So looking back from this school year to last school year, our tuition has been the same the last 2 years. And that base tuition was $6,000, $6,050. So that's been our current tuition for the last 2 years. When we entered the pandemic last March, so already a year ago, St. Pius and the Finance Council had already approved a tuition increase for this school year. We had not made that announcement. That announcement was going out the week, as a matter of fact, that we announced the school closure. Well, of course, we had to shift our focus and really focus in on how we were going to support families and students that now had to be learning from home. We did not feel it was the appropriate time to do so, to make an announcement about tuition the following year. And so Father Tom called an emergency meeting with the Finance Council, and with his recommendation and board approval, we decided, in a move of pastoral care and in a move of solidarity with our families, we would not increase the tuition for the following school year. So we kept it the same. We knew this would be a difficult decision, but the Finance Council knew it would be possible based off the budget that we had set, that it would be possible and that it was the right decision to make. And we still feel that. Yes, it's been difficult, it's been challenging. We did not originally budget for the added expenses of the coronavirus, of the COVID-19 necessities, especially for reopening a school to have students on campus, but we're making it work. We're taking the right steps and being financially, physically conservative. So we're continuing to thrive, we're continuing to expand and do well. And as I mentioned in my letter last week, while everyone's taken a hit, while it's caused all of us to readjust, compared to many other communities and many other schools, St. Pius is doing really well. And while others have shut down programming, have closed out or ended certain staffing positions, we've been able to expand. And we've expanded because we knew it was a necessity, not only for our teachers who needed help in the classroom, both online and physically in the classrooms, but for the students as well. The teachers were stretched very thin. We needed to offer them support, but more importantly, support for the kids to have a second adult to help them with their classwork, extra assignments, classroom management, and so on. So we've been able to expand and thrive in that sense. So as we looked ahead for 2021, 2022, we knew that tuition needed to increase. It was proposed to the Finance Council that an increase needed to happen. We presented 3 different options, as we usually do, and it was decided that our best option was to increase the tuition at the rate of $7,200 with the addition of an aid fee to expand the aid or paraprofessional program at St. Pius School. And so that's a new addition to our tuition. And later on in this presentation, I'll talk in a little more detail of what that will look like. But I wanted to share with you some numbers of the current reality that we're in. As we look towards next year, the cost to educate each child at St. Pius School will be about $10,842. So we're starting to fill in that gap. I don't know if we'll ever be able to reach that gap itself, but at least we're getting closer to it. And so even though it costs that much, we are only charging a much lower rate, which right now is $6,000, but next year will be $7,000. If you look at the bottom corner of the screen, you'll see the average tuition at our sister schools. So our cluster schools are those lower San Mateo County schools, those that are in San Mateo, Menlo Park, also in Redwood City and San Carlos and so on. The median range of those current schools right now is $8,587. So there are a few that are within around our range, and those that are at about 10 or 11,000 as well. But the median there is 8,500. So we're still below that range, and we're still considered one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in our area, and especially in our cluster. There are only 3 other schools in our cluster currently whose tuition is at $7,000 or below. So we are still in that same range of having one of the lowest tuitions, not only in our cluster, but throughout the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So that's including schools in Upper San Mateo, in San Francisco, and in Marin County as well. As we look at the numbers on a school-wide, these are not the actual budgetary numbers of the school, but I kind of wanted to give you a baseline glimpse of what we're looking at in terms of tuition. So at our current rate of $6,050 of tuition per student, if we were to have 250 students, we're bringing in about $1.5 million just on tuition alone. Our expenses, most of which is salary that we pay to our full-time faculty, our part-time faculty, as well as our aides and other staff, is coming in at about 2.7 million. So we have now a gap, an opening of about 1.1 million that we have to fill in. A lot of that 1.1 million is filled in with fees. A lot has to do with fundraising, except for the Fund a Need. Fund a Need always goes to the special project that we raise for. It's brought in by donations. It's filled in by scholarships and financial aid that we receive from the Archdiocese or even from the Basic Fund. And some of it is filled in by our endowment. And we're seeing a trend, ever since the establishment of the endowment, we've relied on it to help keep our tuition low. But we're seeing that as the tuition continues to remain so low, yet costs continue to rise, that gap is getting wider, wider, and wider. And we're having to pull more and more and more from the endowment. So much so that we're pulling more than we are reinvesting. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody or say that we're in a financial crisis or in a difficult situation. We're not. What I'm trying to do is just lay out the reality of where we are and kind of pivot, set a new direction towards security, responsibility, and just a much brighter and better future, where we're really evaluating what the tuition is and where those funds are going, so that we continue to grow, not only as a community, but we continue to grow academically. So investing in up-to-date and modern curriculum, that we have the latest technology, that we're able to turn around that technology more often than what's been done in the past, and that we're able to attract and retain quality teachers. And so we're gonna dig into this a little more as we continue through the presentation. I want us to take a look back at St. Pius's tuition for the last 10 years. So I gave you this year and last year. Now we're looking back to the third year. What you'll see here is the last 10 years. The first line is the tuition that was charged at St. Pius School that year. The percentage increase from the following year at St. Pius, the tuition increase. And then the third line is the average tuition, again, of our San Mateo cluster schools, and the average increase from the following year on their tuition. So the first line is the tuition that we charged at St. Pius School that school year, the percentage increase that we went up from the previous year, and the average, the third line, is the average tuition rate of our cluster schools in San Mateo County that year, and the average percentage increase that they went up from the following year. If you look at our data going back 10 years, you'll see that the majority of our increases have been 0.9% increase by year. If you look at the actual numbers, many of those increases are only $50. And I'm not talking about $50 a month, $50 a year. While other schools are increasing on average 3 to 4% every year. Now, why are those schools increasing 3 to 4% on average? It's because the salaries of our staff every year increase. And at least for the last 4 years, based off the Archdiocesan salary scale, which is public, you can find it on the Archdiocese website, the increase has been set, at least in the last 4 years, at 4%. So we know no matter what, every year, at least salary will be raising 4%. That's why on average, the schools will increase their tuition around that range. It'll differ. Other schools, depending on the school year itself, the actual percentage could be 1% to, I've seen, 11%. The majority fall within the percentage of the salary increase because they're projecting how much they'll be spending. The majority, of course, will be going to salary and benefits. Another thing that I want to point out, again, as we look at our current tuition, the last 2 years, $6,050, look at the average tuition rate of our cluster schools 10 years ago. That average is higher. That average tuition is higher than our current tuition this year in 2021. This is something that has been needed for a long time. Again, we are in a good place. But as we look at the operational vitality and the future of St. Pius, these are the shifts and the changes that we need to make. As I go back to that wow page that I spoke of at the start of the presentation, introducing the tuition letter, that's a rare increase. You do not have to, you should not, you will not expect that a tuition would increase like that again. But at this point in time, it was a move that was recommended by the Finance Council, and it was a move that we needed to make. You can expect a yearly increase, but again, in more reasonable percentages, maybe 1, maybe 2, 2.5, but somewhere around 3 to 4, at the max 7 or 9%. So I don't want you to think this is going to be the new trend moving forward year to year. It will not be. We will go back to those more reasonable changes when we see that they're needed. But I think it's important that we understand what are the current numbers, what is the current reality, and how do we shift our direction so that we're headed towards a more secure, financially fit, healthy school for the future. If you have any questions along the way, please go ahead and write them in the chat box. At the end, we'll go through and review them. And then at the end, I'll also invite you to, you'll be allowed to speak and share any thoughts or questions that you may have as well. But if something comes up in the meantime, please feel free to write those in the chat box. On the last slide, as we looked at a comparison of our cluster schools, I don't mean to compare us to this other school at Mount, in Redwood City or in San Carlos. I don't mean to compare us. I don't want to be compared to, but I think it's important to know what's going on around us. I think it's also important to recognize that St. Pius is a great school, is in a good position, and that we've been able to achieve that with the low tuition that we've had for so long. I think that's a great thing to recognize and to consider. But moving forward, it's just not it's not what's going to sustain us or help us grow faster or help us to grow even stronger. So I think it's important to recognize that. I'd like to share with you a timeline. So as we look into how tuition comes about, where the Finance Council gets involved, how we look at admission and registration, I want to share that with you. So a lot of this starts in November. So we start this the first semester. In November, we begin planning and budgeting for the next school year. So we're doing this months in advance. I sit down with Judy. We go over the vision, the plans for the following school year. We look at the current trends in tuition amongst our cluster, but also our school enrollment. We make 3 projections of different enrollments, different tuition brackets, and we say, here are 3 possibilities. All of that's finalized. We look at how much we're going to invest in curriculum, how much we're going to invest in technology, how much we're going to invest in financial aid and tuition assistance. And then we present that to the Finance Council. So in January, a proposed budget is presented to the Finance Council. They make a recommendation. We dig into all of these different elements. We look at where spending is happening, and we share with the Finance Council all of that information and what we have planned for the following year, what we would like to do, adding positions, extending positions, bringing in new technology, bringing in new platforms. All of that is laid out and explained. In that meeting, the tuition is approved. We then spend the next month focusing on enrollment. So administering the application process, the acceptance process, and registration process for the kindergarten. We finalize the new tuition as well as the financial aid paperwork. And we send out letters of intent to our faculty and staff. Who's planning to come back or not? Where are you in that planning point and let's have a conversation about it. In March, we open enrollment for those applying for 1st through 7th grade. We announce the tuition, we open re-registration, and then the teaching agreements, or what you would know as a contract, is sent out to the teachers. In April, we continue our open enrollment. By that time, we've already sent out our admissions letters, and those that are interested in registering and attending St. Pius the following school year for the first time, they receive their registration packets. We then go through the registration process for our current families. I really want to highlight April. April is a very important month because that is the month in which we open the enrollment, the re-enrollment, and we ask our families, please let us know what your plans are. And if you're planning to come back to St. Pius, complete that registration process. Why does that matter? Because in April, we reevaluate and restructure our budget to be more closely related to what it's going to look like in August. We need to know in April how many students are planning to be in our school in the fall to assure that we are going to be able to financially meet all of those expenses and that pay based off what we're planning to have in the fall. April is also the month in which the teaching agreements are returned. And if a teacher decides they're moving on or change is happening, then we start posting for positions so that we can know who out there is looking for a teaching position and is qualified. We want to know that early enough so that we can reach out to more people and bring in who is going to be the best fit for our community based off their personality and experience and educational background and teaching philosophy. So the earlier we can get all of that out, we feel the more candidates we're able to meet and the better selection we're able to make for our community. Then as we look into May and June, the budget is reevaluated and adjusted based off the projected enrollment of all the families that said, yes, we're coming back in April. That's then submitted to the Finance Council again for review and approval, as well as the Archdiocese of San Francisco. And then it's around that time we usually finalize most of our open positions and we announce the faculty and staff for the upcoming year. Again, I want to step back to April and the importance of the registration process. Our budget and financing is based off who says they are coming to St. Pius. It's important that not only do you say you're coming back, but you make the financial commitment by registering for the school the following fall. This year, because of the pandemic, I know there was a lot left up in the air. I tried to inform the community as much as I could with the information that I had at the time about what the school year would look like. We were severely burned by a number of families that said, yes, we're coming, we're registered and everything. But come August, a week before school starts, or the week of school, which many did, they then pulled out and said, we're not coming back. Every student that withdraws, that's $6,000 that we've budgeted that is now lost the week that school is starting. So we were very open and trying to be very supportive to a lot of our families. We knew a lot were struggling financially or wanted information about what the school year would look like. And so we were very loose with that registration last year to be supportive. But I need everyone to understand the impact that it has on the school when you are saying you're committed, and I understand things change and that happens, and we can work around that. But for this past school year, it was just one after another right at the start of the school year. So it's very important. This timeline is very important. And the dates that we send out are important because it helps us in planning and securing what's coming up for the following school year. As I mentioned, the Parish Finance Council is very involved in this process. We are partners with the parish. The school is a ministry of the parish, as a matter of fact. And so that's why the Finance Council reviews and approves our budget and our finances, our expenditures. And so they are the ones that approved this year's tuition increase. And they asked to send a representative to meet with the families and give a little background of what the Parish Finance Council is and the importance of this tuition increase for this school year. So Don Gamblin is with us this evening, and I'd like to hand it over him for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the Parish Finance Council and the need for this move. So Don, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure thing, Mark. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy and proud to represent the Finance Council here at St. Pius. I'm a St. Pius grad myself. I won't tell you how long ago, but wonderful to be associated with the parish still on an ongoing basis. I thought perhaps that it would be good for just a brief on the Finance Council and its role and its obligation. Church law, canon law, as it's commonly called, mandates the Finance Council, mandates that the Finance Council exist. And then the Archdiocese sets the guidelines for our behavior and our role at St. Pius, as well as the other parishes in the Archdiocese. A couple of highlights there are that we do take a look at all and review all operating and capital budgets associated with the parish and the parish facilities. So the parish itself, or the church, the school, as well as some of the organizations, such as the men's club that operates within the parish. What we are trying to achieve and assisting Father Tarm to achieve is really the financial health of the parish so that it can continue its service to the community. When we were presented with the budget or the recommended budget by St. Pius School this year, not only do we look for our operating expenses appropriately allocated to the operating expenses of the school, where there's operating expenses or shared facilities between the school and the parish, are they appropriately split so that the weighting of shared facilities is borne by both the school as well as by the parish itself. And, it is also the Finance Council's decision in this case with that operating budget, and I'll give you a good example of that sharing, is the Finance Council looks at the costs of running facilities such as Fitzsimons Center and Homer Krause, and part of its budget review and approval was to allocate all those operating expenses to the parish and not to the school. So in effect, what that does is that gives quote unquote free use of those facilities to the school. We're not burdening the operating expenses of the school and therefore the tuition need of the school, but those costs are borne by the parish itself. Parish does the same thing with utilities, with PG&E, with water bills, with trash service. And so we make sure that those are all appropriately allocated. I did want to note, and it was something that I think was exceptional to the school this year, was that those shared facilities, Fitzsimon, Homer Krause, were 100% dedicated to the use by the school this year, really to the exclusion of every other parish organization. And that was really, COVID driven and pandemic driven, but it was an important factor for the students in the school. Mark mentioned the endowment fund, which again is also part of our look at the budget. The endowment fund for the school is really established at the parish level. And in fact, if we take a look at the history of the funding of that endowment, it really has come from parishioners, and not necessarily school families. So it is people that feel strongly for the mission of the school within the parish, and they want to contribute to its financial health as well. Um, I think it's important that we view ourselves as one community, right? It's not the school versus the parish. This is not a private school that funds itself. We do work in community with each other, and we can grow and be strong as that community. Um, this is a significant tuition increase that the Finance Council had to approve this year, but we did so to maintain the health of the school as well as the health of the parish on an ongoing basis. And we did make a determination, a very direct determination, that ongoing funding of the school via the endowment fund or withdrawals from the endowment fund was just not going to be sustainable in the long run. Endowment fund, view it as a rainy day fund, or if there's overages on operating costs that are not planned, that's fine, right? To draw and to have use of that endowment fund is what it was established for. But to simply fund ongoing known budgeted operating costs of the school is really not its purpose, and not what it's intended for. So we did want to move directly away from that as much as possible. There's still going to be some draw this year, and it is to buffer some of the increase. But again, we hope to sort of change that course over the time, over the next few years. I welcome anybody to reach out to me. Please do, and if there's something that is important to you to take up with the Finance Council, or more information needed, please don't hesitate. And I'll turn it back over to Mark now. But again, nice to be able to give you a little bit of insight into what we looked at back in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We greatly appreciate it. I'd like to now step into, we're going to talk a bit about the endowment fund, the aid fee, and looking ahead, and just a little bit more diving deep into who we are as a school and where we are financially. So as Don mentioned, the endowment fund is what has helped sustain St. Pius, especially sustaining such a low tuition. That's why it was established to one, support Catholic education, and specifically Catholic education within our parish. So it was created in 1986 thanks to a very generous donation by a parishioner of St. Pius Church that believed that Catholic education should be accessible and affordable to all families. And we still hold that belief, and we still want to make that a reality with our endowment fund. And as Don mentioned, shifting the use of those funds from the general operational needs, which should come through tuition and so on, down to using those funds for the maintenance and upgrading of our campus, but also supporting the educational program and supporting families that would like to have access to an affordable Catholic education. So that's what we're able to do with the fund. It helps reduce tuition costs, provides financial aid, it assists with capital improvements to the school, and it assists with academic programming, helping us expand and build on our current curriculum. And just a little bit more information of how the endowment is managed. It's not just an open bank account that we can go in and use freely. It is managed by the investment committee of the Archdiocese of San Francisco, with oversight of the fund managed by and responsible for the Parish Finance Council. So, the endowment started at about $500,000 with this initial donation, and has risen to about over $4 million today. And thanks to a very favorable market, this endowment has been able to grow. The concern that we're discussing today is not the value of the endowment itself, but the funds that are being pulled from it and what it's being utilized for. So because of the low tuition and the increasing costs, we're seeing a huge gap happening of what our expenses are and what we are able to cost. And to fill that gap, we extract funds from the endowment, which initially was about 100,000 or so. But in more recent years, it's been over 300,000, and it's something that we're seeing is tending to grow. We want to put the brakes on that, reinvest into the endowment, and secure the future while also being able to provide assistance to those families in needs as tuition and costs continue to grow. So we're reevaluating how those funds are being used and how much of those funds are being used. Unfortunately, we're living in a world where we're pulling more than we're reinvesting. As Don mentioned, the parish parishioners have been very supportive in giving year after year to the endowment fund. And we do have families that, current families that also give. What we do when we accept new students, we include a letter in the registration packet about the endowment fund and a pamphlet to encourage our new families to continue to support that vision that we have of growing the endowment and making St. Pius accessible and affordable to all families looking for a quality Catholic education. So I wanted to talk a bit about the aid fee and what that will look like. This is a new addition to our tuition. It will be in addition to the tuition. It will be taken from facts just like tuition and so on. But the purpose of this is to expand our personnel and support not only to teachers, but more importantly to the students in the classroom. Traditionally, St. Pius has had aides in the kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade. And from first grade on to third grade, those positions have been part-time. What we're looking to do is to have an aide in the classroom all the way up to the junior high and in the classroom more often, where they can not only assist the teacher in the task that the teacher assigns, but assist students, working one-on-one with them, working in small groups with them, whether they are being challenged and need a little bit extra support, or they need a little extra encouragement, or even extra challenge to keep them engaged and focused and growing. So this is the point of the aid fee and the paraprofessional program that we're trying to establish and build up now at St. Pius School. So we're looking to expand the program and bring in more classroom aides all the way up to the junior high. Having more time in the classroom, so not just part-time, especially in those primary grades, having full-time positions where the paraprofessionals are in the classroom with the students and with the teachers throughout the day and ideally every day. Providing more support to students and teachers, as well as then investing in professional development and training. Our focus year after year has been professional development and training for our teachers, our faculty. Now we want to expand that to the paraprofessionals, to the aides, to give them those resources and that support to most effectively help the teachers and help the students, and especially help them in their growing. So we're looking to invest in professional development opportunities and training for our paraprofessionals. The last item that this will help in is providing higher pay so that we can attract and retain good paraprofessionals, good classroom aides who come in either with experience or who have that experience, like a lot of our current aides who have been here for quite a long time and are such an integral part of our community. We want to better support them, not only in the professional sense, but in a financial sense as well. And this will be able to help us do that. As I came in, a year and a half ago, 2 years now, and I spoke to parents and asked them, what are we looking for? What do we need? We talked about classroom sizes. We talked about classroom management, but the support is always the number one things that families are looking for. And this is a way for us to be able to institute that and to be able to institute it now so that we can get something established, solidify that foundation, and grow from here. I want to apologize also. I was just made aware that apparently the chat has been disabled. So I'm sorry that I said earlier you can enter any questions that you have in the chat. Apparently that's not available to anyone right now. So I hope you're writing down your questions, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So we're going to be finishing it up pretty soon. But as we look ahead into the future, as we look into the tuition management and reinvesting back into the school, our priorities are the following. We're looking at hiring and retaining great teachers and staff. And we made great advancements this last school year with the teachers that we were able to bring aboard and integrate into our community. Those teachers that returned are fantastic, top-notch teachers, and those that we brought on board this year, we've heard nothing but high praises for all of them. And we were able to do that with the timeline that we followed, that I showed at the start of the presentation. And because we are focused on providing support, rebuilding and structuring the staffing and how it looks throughout the school, and really following the Archdiocesan guidelines on pay and retention. So we want to continue that. We want to build it so that we can solidify our staff and the learning culture here at St. Pius School. We're looking at purchasing and implementing innovative and engaging curriculum. This is a continuation of the previous administration. We have new science, we have new ELA, we have new math for K-5. Well, now we're looking at expanding that. We brought in new religion. Now we want new math for 6-8, and we want new social studies for K-8. And we're going to continue to evaluate and re-examine our curriculum and update it consistently so that our children are receiving the most up-to-date, the most engaging, and the most innovative curriculum possible. And that, of course, is printed version as well as the digital resources. This year has made it very clear to us of how important it is to have access to those digital resources and digital curriculum as well. And so we want to continue to invest in that. Our third action item, improving and increasing staff support. So having more professional development and looking out for their health and well-being as well. Professional development is very, very expensive. And because of our budgeting, it sometimes was one of the lower bracket items. Well, we're looking at increasing that and finding ways to provide more economical yet effective professional training and professional development for our staff so that it's more consistent and happening much more often. And to do that, we need to invest in it. And that's our plan moving forward. Maintaining and updating facilities and classrooms and campus grounds. This is huge. This is one of the first things I noticed about St. Pius. We have a beautiful campus, but when you walk inside, it's a little dated. And so we've made significant improvements. With the funded need, we were able to update our science classroom, which looks fantastic. We want to continue that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but we want that to be available inside and outside and in all of the classrooms. Improving campus safety and security, especially the exterior of the building, and continuing to grow and foster our Catholic identity, as well as our sense of community. I do not want to sacrifice what puts St. Pius ahead, what makes St. Pius stand out, which is our community. So our new science room, this is my dream, my wish, to have all classrooms look like our new science room. Now, I want to distinguish, the science room was made possible through the fundraising efforts and support of our families and parishioners and friends of St. Pius that donated specifically to the Fund a Need. That's what made the science room possible. Moving forward, I don't want that to be the only way in which we update our classrooms. This is something that needs to be enrolled and integrated into our operating budget. And we do make small things here and there. We paint a classroom or two, we change the carpeting, we buy new furniture or new supplies, but it's all limited because of what we're able to spend. So we're looking at shifting that paradigm and making it something that's going to be able to happen more often and on a bigger scale, and not just through fundraising. Yes, we'll still have fundraising, and we'll have those fundraisings for special projects, but we want to lessen the dependence of it going into what would be a normal operating budget or a normal operating expense. So that's our goal moving forward in updating and modifying and just maintaining our school building. Looking at another area of need, our hallway. Wood paneling. I had someone make a comment to me, an alumni, make a comment to me the other day that it smells the same as when they were a kid. And I don't know what they're talking about, but apparently there's a smell in the hallway. Not a bad smell, but just a smell that you recognize. And so when we give tours, the lighting is off, and the wood paneling kind of darkens the classroom. And so we're looking at how can we update and really set an environment that's conducive to learning, that's warm and welcoming, and that's fit for children. I have spoken to a few contractors and different individuals as we were fixing the science classroom this past year and over the summer, and we have these really nice lab tables that have electrical outlets. And I said, I don't want to plug these into the wall, because then we'll have wiring going everywhere. I want the plugs to be put into the ground. And they said, yes, no problem, we can do that. But we cannot make them live because you don't have the infrastructure to support these outlets, these electrical needs in this area of the building. So, it's like we make a step forward and then we're taking two back. And he says, I have a proposal, something I presented a while back, of how we can get this updated. We need to install new paneling, and it needs to be 2 panels. And when you do that, then you'll have the infrastructure needed for these electrical outlets and to plug in whatever you want or need at that end of the wing. And it's like, with the technology and everything else that we've invested in, how are we going to keep that up and build beyond that when we can't even plug in the devices to support and maintain the energy on that side of the building? So that's another area that we're looking at updating, and that will be impacted in the hallway. The lighting as well has been a concern of mine. I spoke to an electrician who is alum of the school, supports us, is very active and supportive in the school and parish. And he had mentioned to me that the entire lighting in the hallway needs to be replaced. And unfortunately, it's not just as simple as removing those panels. You have to redo the entire electrical system that's located in that ceiling. And so we're going to have to plan moving forward to remove that ceiling as needed and replace that lighting so that we can get much warmer, up-to-date lighting and efficient lighting for our school campus. And then as well, as I mentioned with the grounds, not only wanting to improve and build on campus safety and security, but beautification for our campus, especially the face of the school where the office is located. That's the first thing that people see when they come onto our campus. We want it to be warm and inviting and attractive to prospective families and to visitors, and of course to our own families that are already here. You deserve something nice to look at and to admire and be a part of, and that's part of the plans as we look forward. Again, I don't want to put band-aids. I don't want to do little things here and there. So a lot of this will take planning and readjustment, and that's why we're making those adjustments now with the tuition. As we look at making improvements, I mentioned curriculum. This is something that even the Parish Finance Council had questioned last year. Why are we spending so much money on books? And it's because of the current trends in purchasing curriculum and in what the publishers are putting out. Most books today are consumable. The kids use it once, they write in it, and then it's done for. Whereas back in the day, we could buy one set and those would be used for 10 years. That's just not the current reality anymore. And those types of books, those types of curriculum aren't as engaging and interactive as these consumable ones are. So we want to continue to provide those materials, resources, and supplies, something that's tangible, but also accessible online. And those are the changes that we're going to be making in the curriculum as we purchase new curriculum moving forward. And then lastly, of course, continuing to build on and foster community, continuing to build on and foster opportunities for events and engagement, where students can have fun and be with each other, where parents can have a good time, meet other parents, and be able to volunteer and participate. Community is what stands out at St. Pius. I want to continue to grow and foster that. And a lot of our community events are fundraisers, and those fundraisers help us with the operational vitality, and they help us with special projects. I don't want it to just be a focus like we have to raise this much money and have to do this and that. The main purpose is it's for the kids, it's for the families, it's for community. Yes, we can raise funds on the side, but let that be the second thought. What are we doing to engage with each other, to engage our community, and to bring camaraderie and confraternity with everyone that is present? We want it to be a happy place. We want it to be a fun place, as well as those other important Catholic ideals and values, as well as the academic virtues and values that are needed as well. So those are our goals in moving forward, lessening our independence on fundraising, focusing more on special projects, and ultimately making community and student support a priority. Re-registration is now open, so as we look towards next year, we ask that you do review and sign the tuition agreement, that you do submit your registration fee, and then once that fee is completed, you'll receive re-registration forms, and that anything that's requested, especially emergency information, health information, updated medical records, especially for our 7th graders, that all of that is submitted before the start of the school year. I wanted to touch just a bit on the tuition agreement. We are asking that you do return that by the end of April. Please read it carefully. Please make sure that all areas of the form are completed and submitted to finalize the registration. You can find the link to the tuition agreement in our tuition letter, and we will be posting it on the school website, and we'll probably be sending it in the newsletter as well. In the link, you'll see an area where you add student information, agreement to pay the tuition, to participate in service hours, and to be an active member of both the parish as well as the school. So, understanding that we are one community, that, without the parish, we wouldn't be here. And so service hours can be performed at both. And that when we have events, we want the community to engage and be present. And even on our Sunday masses, especially, the Eucharist is the source and summit. And we have family masses once a month. And we really would like to engage all of our families at those school masses. And so we'll have special events and, presentations at those masses throughout next school year. God willing, we'll be fully back and present. I wanted to just clarify, a lot of questions had come up about service hours. So service hours will not be counted or collected for this school year because of the continued closures to guests and volunteers in the school because of county guidelines. We are, however, still in need of volunteers for recess outside, morning and afternoon recess. So please, if the teacher sends out your sign up genius, please sign up. We are in great need of recess volunteers and lunchtime volunteers. So please do keep that in consideration. We're not collecting, but we're still in great need. Your participation in this area is what is allowing us to continue to be able to have the kids on campus and to be able to provide the teachers a little break and a time to have lunch throughout the school day. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are all stretched extremely thin right now. Any support that we can get, which really is only that is outside, we are greatly appreciative of. Now, the tuition agreement that you received does mention service hours, and failure to complete those hours will result in a $1,000 addition to your school tuition. That's taking into account next school year. So as I mentioned, this school year, we're not counting service hours, but starting in August of next school year, so August 2021, we will then start counting service hours, and that tuition, if you didn't complete them, that tuition would be applied to the following school year. So that would be 2022, 2023. Financial aid. I know that the tuition is increasing significantly. If this is going to pose a barrier or an issue, please know that financial aid is available. We have the school financial aid, which is due at the end of April. We have Archdiocesan financial aid, which is due mid-April, and then the Basic Fund scholarship. It's important to understand, though, that Basic Fund is only available to new students. So that's due pretty soon. That has been sent to our new families or families that are currently applying. If you are a current family but have a child that's entering into the school for the first time, you can apply for Basic Fund for that individual child. So that is another option to support if you are in need of financial aid. All of this can be found on the financial aid admissions page on our school website. Again, I do apologize that the chat is not working, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to hear them and to be able to answer and address them now.
Should we just speak up?
Yes. If you have a question, please feel free to speak up.
Okay, great. So I got two questions. They're intertwined. What is the endowment number the school is comfortable with maintaining?
In terms of what we would pull to use.
No, the balance, the number you'd like to maintain in the endowment fund.
So we've been very blessed in the last couple of years with the good market that the endowment has increased. What we're hoping to do is invest more in it rather than pooling. So we're currently pooling about 300,000. We're looking to only having to pull maybe 100 to 120 or so.
Okay. And and just to be very blunt and frank, what tuition number gets us to that situation?
That's a great question, because as we're looking for the projected numbers for next school year based off this current tuition, we're looking at possibly still pulling out about 200,000.
Okay.
So I
So,
don't
yeah.
know the exact number of what will get us to that point right now, but with our current proposed budget and the current tuition set for next year, we're looking at about 200,000.
To be pulled from the endowment fund.
Yes.
Okay. Have we considered I don't know, maybe a half year adjustment number for tuition to accommodate for, the uncertainty of attendance and, you mentioned earlier about a half hour ago about folks who last minute drop out. I think everyone who is committed to the St. Pius community is more than welcome to supporting the needs of the school. We just like to know what that might be. And if there's a dramatic adjustment that might be needed to get us, healthy again, if you will, not that we're unhealthy, as you've mentioned, but to get us in a more healthy situation, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to know what that is. If it's, you mentioned increases year over year of $50, not a month, not a week, but a year, that's, I think, insignificant to the bigger picture. Is it more like, are we 10% off here? Are we 20% off?
Yeah, that's something that I would have to see, first of all, if it's even possible. I'm not aware of a school that has ever had a system like that. It's probably something we would want to shift away from in terms of, having you sign an agreement. Just as much as we would want you to keep to that agreement, I'm sure you would want us to follow up on our end. If you take a look at the agreement, there are a few updates. And one of the updates of the agreement is that families that register and make that commitment, if they do pull out at a certain time, will be committed to paying or owing a certain portion of what was expected and already included in our budget. So I do advise you take a look at that new agreement, and some of those details are in there to help stabilize those situations when we do have, there are different reasons for families to leave or to all of a sudden change in the middle of a school year. And some of that is laid out in that new agreement.
Okay.
But as far as adjusting in the middle of the school year, I'm not aware of any schools that do that or have done that. That's something I'd have to talk to the Archdiocese about. And again, it wouldn't be my initial move in that we have an agreement set up. What we will look towards, I think, as we're talking about vision and vitality, is setting up a 3 to 5 year plan of what St. Pius would look like in terms of its finances, and including possible tuition increases, including those foreseen expenses, including salaries and so on. I think that's where we need to maybe start as we look ahead, is not just planning year to year, but planning 3 to 5 years out.
Very good. Yeah. I think the current families that have children in the school, and the hundreds or even thousands that have had them in the school that contribute, we're interested in sustaining the high level of education that everyone's accustomed to, which you've highlighted in your presentation tonight very well. So I guess my point is, there's a cost for that, right?
Yeah.
And we need to understand what the cost is, and maybe bluntly, let's not beat around the bush. What is it? Let's talk about what it really is, and we all understand everything costs more year over year. Running a quote unquote a business, from the business point of view, costs go up. We understand that. You've been very generous. I think St. Pius's tuition is extremely low for what we're getting. And I myself, I'm not speaking for every parent, of course, but paying X amount more, it would not be a surprise for me, personally.
We are, at the beginning, I did share very rough numbers, but that I think it was about 2.7 is near the ballpark of what our current expenses are, or at least for the previous year. We are currently working on an annual report. So again, in an effort to be transparent and continue to grow on that, which has been a big mission of my administration, we are looking to publish a report at the end of the year that will go into a little bit more detail of closer numbers to what it's costing the school and what we're bringing in as well. So we'll have an annual report coming out very soon, and that's something that will be coming out year after year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have a question. Has this finance committee changed as far as the people on the committee over the last 10 years? The only reason I ask is I'm wondering, why have they not made more of significant increases in tuition, since it was only going up, as you mentioned, maybe $50 a year?
That's a great question. Yes, the changes have occurred. Even from last year, we have quite a few new members. I think a lot has changed in 10 years. We're in different economies. We're in different, we're in a more modern tech world, where expenses kind of have shifted, priorities have shifted. And I think the leadership and their vision and their priorities have also changed. So there's many factors that play into that. I agree and with a lot of things in terms of decisions that have been made in the past. It's just the situation that we're in now. Different decisions need to be made. to just shift the dynamics of where we're headed towards where we want to be, given recent changes in economy, given recent changes in the educational field and in technology. It's a generational thing too. The parents of the 80s and 90s were very different from millennial parents today, and what current families are looking for in terms of a solid education.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So there's just so many factors that play into that, and I think it's a lot of moving parts that have just changed recently.
One last question: have the teachers' salaries? Could that have been part of the influence? St. Pius has had a lot of turnover over the last few years for teachers.
Mhm.
Do you foresee that perhaps we might be able to retain the teachers for more to stay with St. Pius with more attract? I mean, I know that the archdiocese mandates kind of dictates the salaries, but hopefully we could have less turnover.
Yeah, and that salaries is going back to your last question, has also played a big impact in that. In previous years, there was not a scale. And unfortunately, I'm not familiar as to when the salary scale was introduced, but I know for a fact that the last 4 years, the scale was set to raise 4% every year. So we've been on a 4% increase since 2016, 2017. But the tuition has not been raising with that at that rate. It was maintained at its 0.09 or no increase. And so salary definitely is another major factor in what has led us to where we are right now. This is the last year of that salary increase. 2021, 2022 is the last year of that increase. And as I mentioned, this information is available to the public. It's on the Archdiocese website. So I assume the Archdiocese, the Department of Catholic Schools, and their Finance Council will be evaluating and setting a new pay scale for the next 4 years. At what rate, though, I don't know. It could be 2%, as has been done in previous years. It could be 4, it could be 5. That is part of the challenge of being able to attract and retain teachers at times. We've had teachers move away. We've had teachers move to other academic institutions. And we've had teachers turn us down because they were teaching in a public school and the salary was just not comparable to what they were currently earning or what they needed to earn to maintain their living situation. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and it's something that we're always talking with the superintendent and the Archbishop about, that we need a lot of support in supporting our teachers financially. And it's not just pay, we need housing, for certain instances, affordable housing, and support in tuition for teachers that want to earn a master's degree or renew their credentials or earn a credential or whatnot. Because schooling is also very expensive right now. So many factors, but we are working on right now, how can we better support our teachers? And I know PTG has made a lot of efforts in that. The most recent Fund a Need, the families that had a voice in where those funds would go, majority wanted it to go towards teacher support and incentive. And so we're very pleased to see that parents are recognizing that need and that teachers are seeing that the parents really do care about them and that we are a community here where we look out and support each other.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about your teacher aid, which is great. I love that there's teacher aides in the classroom. Why was the cost of the teacher aid separate from the tuition? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and what we're trying to do is make it clear that that fund is going specifically toward that program, to be able to integrate and build on the current aids that we have, which only go up to 3rd grade, even though right now we do have them up to 5th grade. It's to expand and grow beyond that. We are going to evaluate and see how this is working out and how it's contributing to our academic program. There's a possibility that at one point that either will dissolve or be integrated somehow into the tuition.
So similar to a fund in need, that money is only going to teachers and it can't be reassigned for other things within the school.
It's not like Fund a Need where it's locked. It's for us to be able to know specifically that we have this much to support our teacher aides, and then funnel those funds to make sure that we're covering salary, benefits, which before teacher aides did not get. And now, because of the expansion of time and hours, that would be additional costs and expenses that we've not accounted for in our general budget. So I'm not saying it's necessarily locked, but it's for us to be able to funnel those into what we'll have available for our teacher aides and securing that for the most part.
Okay, great, thank you.
So it is about 8:30. I'm open to another question or two before we sign off for the night. Any last questions?
I have a question.
Yes, great.
So you talked about a 3 to 5 year plan looking forward. And with my one returning child, it's about without the aid fund, it's a 20% increase this year. With it, it's about 33% increase.
Mhm.
What is the future plans for the next year? Are you expecting to increase another 20 to 30%?
No. So I did touch on this briefly, that I understand it's not what you were expecting. In a sense, it's almost not what I was expecting when I first went and spoke to the Finance Council. It's a huge leap. And moving forward, I assured the families you will not need to ever expect something like that because of what we're doing now, which should have been done years ago, year after year after year. Now we're correcting it. We're reshifting that focus, and you can expect possibly an increase every year. Maybe not, but that increase would then be 1 to maybe 4, 5%. In another extreme case, it would be like 9%. Not in the next couple of years. If we continue to really maneuver with the finance that will be fiscally conservative and planning for the future with those 3 to 5 year plans. So no, you can expect maybe 1 to 2.5, 3, 4, with a max of being like 7 or 9%. But I don't see that happening in the next couple of years. and definitely not what the leap we've made this year to correct this.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will the aid fee increase as well, or just the tuition fee would just increase? The aid fee is going to stay consistent.
The aid fee would stay consistent, and again, we'll evaluate it year after year. That I see staying consistent. If anything changes, it would be like maybe the registration or the tuition. The registration might stay the same probably for a while, but it's the tuition more of a need that often has to adapt.
So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for all of your questions. If you do have any questions or concerns after this presentation, please send me an email, give me a phone call at the office, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it or to respond as well. Thank you again. I hope you all have a good evening and then a great weekend coming up tomorrow.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Nava.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. You too.